In our age of the internet and mass media that's only a few clicks away, lost media is a novelty that never fails to pique our interest. Lost media can collectively grab the attention of so many people that large-scale searches form to find certain pieces of missing media. These searches usually give newfound life to pieces of media that were thought to be lost forever. However, the vast majority of lost media doesn't receive the special treatment that certain pieces of lost media receive. So that's why, today, I'll be talking about 6 obscure pieces of lost media with no specific theme or order. With that being said, let's start this thing. The Child and the Mermaid was a French animated film that was in production during the 1960s. The film was directed by Sylvain Nedjad Atsamba, which I hope I'm pronouncing right. And the film is most notable because of the sets that were made during its production. The sets for the film were roughly created around 1963 to 1965, were created underwater, and depicted large-scale settings such as villages and cities. The sets were created off the coast of southern France and were also filmed in the Aegean Sea of Greece. The sets are genuinely super impressive and include things such as churches, Ferris wheels, and large-scale models that have many little buildings on them. I suggest that you check out these sets for yourself. They're genuinely super fascinating. I think the most interesting part about this is seeing the pictures of the sets that were taken more recently. It's super fascinating seeing how nature has started to reclaim these sets. Aside from documentation of the sets, information surrounding the film is very scarce. Virtually nothing is known about the plot other than the fact that it might have been a musical and that the film might have been a hybrid film combining both 2D and stop motion animation. Since some productions still showcase 2D animation, whilst the photos of the sets show figurines on the sets. Information about the film is so scarce that we don't even know if the film was actually finished, due to the fact that there were apparent monetary issues during the film's production. Due to these monetary issues, as well as a lack of knowledge about the film and its director, this film will most likely remain lost. And all that survives of this film are production stills and the sets, which are rotting away in the Mediterranean Sea. Dacia is a Roman commentary from roughly 100 AD and was created by Roman Emperor Trajan. The commentary centers around Trajan's military campaigns in the region of Dacia, which corresponds to modern-day Romania. Rome initially began their military campaigns into Dacia between the years 86 to 88 AD, which were led by Emperor Domitian but were unsuccessful. However, Rome would restart their military engagements in Dacia under the leadership of Emperor Trajan in 101 AD, with the first campaign into Dacia lasting between 101 and 102 AD, and the second campaign lasting between 105 and 106 AD, which were successful. Sometime during these campaigns, Emperor Trajan decided to write accounts of the fighting that occurred. The only thing that survives from this commentary is a single sentence from a 6th century grammar book by the grammarian named Priscian. The sentence translates from Latin to the following. Trajan in the first book of Dacia writes, "Then we made our way to Berzobis and thereafter to Azi." This sentence referring to 2 Roman castras or forts in Transylvania in western Romania. The sentence refers to a first book of Dacia, implying the existence of multiple books of Dacia. Due to how old Dacia is, it's very unlikely that the full commentary will resurface, and all that remains is this single sentence from the 6th century grammar book. Bird Village was a direct-to-video series of shorts that were created roughly from the late 90s through the early 2000s, and were created by Scott Cawthon, who you may know as the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's. Bird Village revolved around a group of birds with the names Beak, Seabill, Stork, and Camel, who would go on many adventures throughout the Bird Village shorts. There were 5 Bird Village segments, which in order includes Beak's Adventure, Beak's Vacation, Beak's Snowball Fight, Bird Village the Movie, and Bird Village Second Nest. Each segment would be included on volumes of Bird Village. For example, Bird Village Volume 1 consists of 2 shorts, Beak's Adventure and Beak's Vacation. Beak's Adventure follows Beak, Stork, Camel, and Seabill as they go out on an adventure while a swarm of bees besiege their house. Beak's Vacation follows Beak and his pals as they go on the moon to find out what the moon is made of, and during this adventure, Beak and his pals make new friends along the way. Bird Village Volume 2 consists of a short titled Beak's Snowball Fight, which follows Beak and his pals fighting against mechanical snowmen known as Snowbots. Bird Village the movie runs for 45 minutes and revolves around the main cast of Bird Village traveling through time. After the initial run of Bird Village, the series quickly fell into obscurity, but new light was shed on Bird Village when Scott Cawthon would gain fame from creating the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Prior to 2020, the only available content from Bird Village was Beak's Snowball Fight, which was a bonus feature on The Return to Mush Snail, which is one of Scott Cawthon's animations. But on November 24th, 2020, YouTube user King would discover that he had the Volume 1 VHS tape and would upload it to YouTube. On March 13th, 2024, YouTube user PhilBrave would upload the stories from Bird Village VHS, which included Bird Village the movie. While 4 out of the 5 Bird Village segments have been found, one remains lost, that being Bird Village Second Nest. As of 2025, Bird Village Second Nest is still lost, and all that's really known about it is that it might have been a sequel to Bird Village the movie. As of now, the majority of the Bird Village series is found, with the exception of Bird Village Second Nest. In 1985, Baltimore native Santo Victor Rigotuso decided that he would make a film for the ages. This ambitious film made by Santo would combine the likes of horror, science fiction, and pro wrestling. This film would be called Blood Circus. The exact plot of Blood Circus isn't known, but the general synopsis of the film is: the film revolves around aliens from the planet Zoran who get sent to Earth with the purpose of fighting pro wrestlers from the United States and the Soviet Union. But what makes these aliens different is that they're man-eaters, and they eat their opponents once they defeat them. Blood Circus had a budget of $2 million and would mostly be promoted through late-night infomercials from Rigatuso's mail-order jewelry business, Santo Gold. These infomercials would include clips from the film, as well as a song performed by Rigatuso himself, which has nothing to do with the actual plot of Blood Circus, but is instead intended to promote Santo Gold. Blood Circus would be filmed at the Baltimore Civic Center and featured wrestlers from Southwest Championship Wrestling, including Doug Ox Baker, Vinny Valentino, and Eric Embry. The filming of Blood Circus would be advertised as a wrestling match, which was also going to be turned into a movie, and people who went to the filming of Blood Circus would be paid extras, receiving $10. A person who attended the filming of Blood Circus describes the following on an internet forum: the audience was the usual unwashed kids and grannies at a low-rent wrestling event, and man were they pissed when it turned out to be a sham. It was advertised as a wrestling match / come be in a movie event. Long pauses while nothing happened, with people screaming for blood, with local announcer Charlie Ekman trying to move the non-existent show along. There were aliens, bad dummies as I recall, lowered from the roof to suck the brains of wrestlers. There were fake severed heads tossed about. My favorite part was a wrestling tag team called the Crying Blondes. Hit them and they cried, which they indicated by spitting / rubbing their fists in their eyes baby style. All the while Mr. Santo himself ran around with a bullhorn looking exactly like Phil Spector. Despite all the chaos that ensued during the filming of Blood Circus, the whole movie was finished and completed. It premiered in 1985 with only 3 people in attendance, with 2 being film critics and the other person being an extra from the film. Despite the film premiering in 1985, Rigatuso still needed to find a producer for the film, but he would struggle with this task. That would be until 2 years later in 1987 when Rigatuso would decide to take matters into his own hands. Rigatuso decided that he would rent out several movie theaters in the Baltimore area to have screenings of Blood Circus. These screenings would last a week, and at these screenings, so-called scream bags were given out to the audience, which were meant for viewers to scream into, and included a poem about Blood Circus, as well as a coupon for a free diamond ring from Santo Gold. Despite this revolutionary marketing by Rigatuso, barely anyone watched Blood Circus, which meant that the film was a financial failure that didn't get anywhere near a good return on investment. Not long after the final Blood Circus screenings wrapped up, the film quickly faded into obscurity and was believed to have become lost. And what didn't help was that in 1989, Rigatuso would briefly be arrested for mail fraud surrounding Santo Gold. Information surrounding Blood Circus stayed cold until 2001, when a website would be created for Santo Gold, which would advertise a 1-hour making of DVD surrounding the making of Blood Circus. Not much is known about this specific DVD other than the fact that it supposedly existed. In 2008, the Santo Gold website would be updated again, stating that the masters and 35mm film negatives for Blood Circus were found and that the film was in need of a distributor. Despite this call to action, no one would take up this offer. In 2011, a user named JetTrack843, who was believed to be Rigatuso, would put up a bid for their copy of Blood Circus on eBay, which had a bid price of $21 million, which no one bought. But in 2013, another copy of Blood Circus would show up on eBay from a user who said that they got their copy minutes before it was going to be thrown out. The bid got to $222, but still failed to sell to anyone. But in April 2014, this specific eBay user would privately screen their copy of Blood Circus at the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas, which proved that their copy of Blood Circus was actually real. In 2015, the same user would put up their copy of Blood Circus for sale on eBay with a price of $3,500, but this copy would still fail to sell. In 2019, the Santo Gold YouTube channel would upload a video in which they asked for any potential producers to contact them, which is the last we've heard from Santo Gold regarding Blood Circus. The last known whereabouts surrounding the copy that was shown at the Alamo Drafthouse are still in the hands of the seller, but they aren't willing to let the film get scanned due to the film's rarity. As of 2025, it's not known if Santo Gold is still working on actually getting the film released, since the last we've heard of Santo Gold was in 2019, and Rigatuso himself passed away nearly 10 years ago in 2015, which makes the likelihood of the film getting released a lot less likely. And as of the making of this video, Blood Circus remains lost. During the early days of Nickelodeon, the channel would air content much different from what they currently air. Rather than just airing reruns of SpongeBob 24/7, the channel would actually air a variety of content that would mostly be defined by variety shows as well as package shows. Package shows are shows that would air already existing content, mostly old film serials, old cartoons, and silent short films from the early to mid 20th century. Among these package shows that would air in Nickelodeon's early days, one specific show stands out. This show is called Nickelflix. Nickelflix would first air on April 1st, 1979, which is when Nickelodeon initially launched, and was among one of the first shows to air on the channel. The show is most importantly remembered as the first original series to air on the program. An ad from August 12th, 1979 from the Warsaw, Indiana-based Times-Union newspaper gives us some insight on some of the content that could have aired on Nickelflix. The print ad from Times-Union states that Nickelflix aired film serials and short films from the likes of Flash Gordon, Rin Tin Tin, Buster Crabbe, Tom Mix, John Wayne, Bela Lugosi, Gene Autry, Charlie Chaplin, and Fatty Arbuckle. The exact content from these actors that was aired on Nickelflix isn't exactly known, but we can come to the conclusion that it included many different film genres, mostly from the 30s and 40s. For instance, the ad states that Buster Crabbe had serials in Nickelflix, who was famous for starring in the Flash Gordon serials from 1936 to 1940, which are based on the comics of the same name, and follow a college student named Flash Gordon attempting to stop the evil ruler of the planet Mongo, Ming the Merciless. The ad also states that Rin Tin Tin had serials on Nickelflix, who was a dog actor famous for being saved during World War I. Rin Tin Tin starred in two film serials that were likely used in Nickelflix, those being The Lone Defender from 1930 and The Lightning Warrior from 1931, with the former being about a dog seeing his owner get killed and the gang that killed his owner attempting to find the owner's gold mine, and the latter being about a dog attempting to get revenge behind the culprit of their owner's murder. Other names mentioned in the ad are famous names that need no introduction, such as famous Western stars Gene Autry, Tom Mix, and John Wayne, famous horror icon Bela Lugosi, and silent slapstick pioneers Charlie Chaplin and Fatty Arbuckle. Nickelflix was hosted by John Machida Jr., who is most notable for being known as the fast-talking guy, and also starring in many ads for Micro Machines, where he is known as the Micro Machines guy. Machida would host Nickelflix as a Sidney Greenstreet-inspired character, and would talk about public affairs issues that in some way related to the plots or the stars of the serials. Nickelflix would run from April 1st, 1979, all the way until sometime in December of 1979, when Nickelodeon would pull the plug on the show. The main reason why the show was cancelled was due to the fact that some of the serials contained mild amounts of violence, which caused many complaints to come in towards Nickelodeon. After the show was cancelled, it quickly fell into obscurity. In an interview with Machida, the master tapes of Nickelflix were apparently sold off at a public auction to make up for the cost of not paying for a storage unit. And what doesn't help is that Nickelflix aired at a time when VCR was in its early days, which means the technology wasn't widely available to the public, so the likelihood of any footage of Nickelflix resurfacing is slim to none. In 1916, a film would be created in San Francisco by a select few people that would be incredibly historically significant but would never gain any widespread notoriety. This historical film was known as Creation. Creation was made in 1916, and the production of the film included works from the likes of Byington Ford as well as Tak Knight, and the production was led by a certain Pinto Colvig. If that name sounds familiar, then you may know him for starring in this little-known role known as the original voice actor for Goofy. You also might be asking what makes this film so historically significant, despite the fact there's barely any info on it. Well, that's because this film is considered to be the world's first feature-length animated film ever created. Yes, you heard me right. Creation predates Snow White by 21 years, The Prince of Ahmed by 10 years, and Creation even predates what was widely known as the first feature-length animated film ever, El Apostol, by 1 year. The film was created at the Animated Film Corporation, which was located in San Francisco, but was apparently shut down due to American entry into World War I. Nothing is known about the plot of the film, but the handful of surviving stills provided by the Southern Oregon Historical Society do kind of give us a very rough outline for what the plot potentially could have been about. The majority of the stills involve the animators in some way, whether it be them in the normal world or them as animated cartoons that were done in the cutout animation style with their heads on cartoon bodies. But the main title card of the film has an angel with a trumpet on it, which could imply the film potentially had some biblical themes, but we really just don't know. So maybe the film was about a group of animators getting sucked into their own work with some type of biblical theme. But again, there just isn't enough info to go off of. Information surrounding Creation was basically non-existent until around 2021, when a few Reddit posts in early 2021 mentioned the film, and the Southern Oregon Historical Society added a section talking about the film to their page about Pinto Colvig. Despite the film more than likely being finished as the stills from the film show, it isn't exactly known that the film actually released due to the fact that there hasn't been any proof showing that the film released in any newspapers. It's unknown what actually happened to Creation, but Pinto Colvig potentially alluded to the fate of the film in one of his memoirs, in which he warns Walt Disney about what might happen to the negatives of his film Snow White, how they will be soaked off to reclaim their silver contents after it loses its popularity, which is suspected to have happened to Creation. If the film would have survived, I think that the Southern Oregon Historical Society more than likely would have made some effort to make the film more well known due to its historical nature. But as of 2025, all that remains of Creation, the first ever feature-length animated film ever created, are a handful of stills from the Southern Oregon Historical Society and Colvig's warning not to destroy your work for profit.